Our first guest this week is Dr. Dwain Irvin. He's the CEO of a company called NovAccess Global Incorporated, XSNX, their stock symbol, coming to us from the LD Micro Conference in Westlake, California. Dr. Irvin, welcome to the program.
Fantastic. Good to see you, Don. I'm here, like you said, at the LD Micro Conference in Southern California. It's a biotech investor conference, and NovAccess Global had an opportunity to give a presentation yesterday.
Now, you describe yourself as a company dedicated to developing and bringing to market innovative medical treatments and devices for the treatment of cancer and neurological disorders. Can you give us a general overview of the company, please?
Sure, absolutely. We are, as you mentioned, we are a biotech company with technology and immunotherapy against the most common adult brain tumor, glioblastoma. This technology is coming out of Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, Department of Neurosurgery, and we are considered at the IND stage of development. In other words, we've gone to the FDA through a pre-IND interaction last year and asked them if we were indeed ready for human clinical trials. They responded and let us know that we are indeed done with all our preclinical analysis and animal models for our technology, and we are human clinical trial ready. They also provided us with a roadmap on what would likely be a successful application for to start a phase 1 clinical trial. We asked as well if we would be eligible to start with a phase 2A application instead of a phase 1, because all of the changes that we've made to the technology has been done outside of the body and should not change the safety profile of the technology. This technology we consider to be a third generation dendritic cell-based immunocellular therapy against glioblastoma. The first 2 generations have made it through phase 1 and phase 2 clinical trials. The second generation technology of this particular drug or approach was fast-tracked, if you will, or was able to jump past the phase 1 and start with a phase 2 on their human clinical trials because all of their changes were done outside the body. And ours, this second tweak or third generation technology has made some changes or tweaks outside of the body as well that should not change the safety profile. So because of this, the FDA also provided a bit of a roadmap. If we were prepared and ready to start with a phase 2A, they gave us a roadmap what the application should look like there. So we're being very aggressive here and have been for the last 6 months to a year in preparing the data necessary so that we can apply for a phase 2A. And we'd like to think that at the very least, we would have some good shot at getting a phase 1 approved and have some inside chance at a phase 2A as a start as well.
Fascinating. Now, you spent the better part of the last year or so restructuring the company, adding new board members, exploring acquisition targets. Tell us about that journey.
Absolutely. So we started off last year. Again, this company started as a public structure back in October of 2020. We started by reverse merging into a 20-year operational solar panel company based here in Southern California. We were able to take over that company, change the operations, change the management team, change the name, and become NovAccess Global, the immunotherapy company that we are today. As a new public company back in October 2020, we had to build a board out for this purpose. And in the recent past, we've managed to do that. We now have a new chairman of the board, very long in the tooth and working in public markets with various companies. And we also have an additional board member, Jason Anderson. John Casherini was our chairman. Jason Anderson, who's also an ex-US diplomat and has a lot of experience as a CEO and with biotech companies, has a few patents himself. Very, very strong addition. Both of these are strong value adds to our board. And I too have been added to the board. So I'm not only CEO of NovAccess Global, but I'm also currently a board member. Furthermore, we've cleaned up our structure. In the beginning, we had a fair number of overhangs through some preferred shares, et cetera, that had the potential to dilute the company. And so we were able to get rid of 98, 99% of that and buy it all back into the company. And so that was a very huge overhang and a very huge structural change that now makes us much more attractive to investors and then cleans up our cap structure. We roughly have a $5 million market cap with roughly 17 million common shares and roughly 2 or so million shares in the float. We plan to grow by acquisition in this space for brain cancer, But right now, we're very focused in on our very first asset, which comes to us through a company called Stindex. Once we've started trials in this space, we do have some research partners that we are considering of doing joint ventures with or something along these lines, where we might add additional assets in the brain cancer space to help improve the quality of life for these patients. So overall, again, we are that immunotherapy company to treat glioblastoma that's at the IND stage, which is third generation technology in the space.
Well, what message are you bringing, Dwayne, to the attendees at the LD Micro Conference?
So we want to let everyone know that we've made these advances on our structure, but that we've also made significant advances as far as getting our data together for the IND application. We plan to file our IND application at the end of this year, end of Q4 or Q1 of 2023. And we've recently partnered with a manufacturing company that we're trying to close terms on right now to help us finalize the data that we need for the IND application. Furthermore, we have plans to file for orphan drug status this month, and we'd like to that changes sort of the profile of our drug candidate moving forward to clinical trials. And we think it's a fantastic designation. It's appropriate for the technology and should help us migrate through the clinical trial process in a very strong and or good way. So we're here to announce the progress that we've made in generating that data for the IND application. We're also here to let people know that we're applying for the orphan drug application and all the structural changes and changes to the managerial team that I've just mentioned.
Can you give us a short overview of the Stindex technology?
Absolutely. So it's a dendritic cell-based immunotherapy to treat the most common adult brain tumor. It has about a 15-month median survival after diagnosis. So that's not very nice for many of these patients. Furthermore, despite all the advances that we've seen in the last 40, 50 years in chemo and radiation that have improved overall and progression-free survival in other cancers, for brain cancer, we haven't seen that advancement or that increase in overall and progression-free survival through the use of chemotherapy and or radiation. So there's been an unmet need, and that unmet need is trying to be addressed through immunotherapy, where we utilize the patient's immune system to attack the cancer. And briefly, the way in which this is done, a neurosurgeon will remove the brain tumor, all of it or as much of it as they possibly can, without bringing harm to the patient. They will then send that tumor to our laboratory. We will also draw blood from that patient and send the blood sample to our laboratory. From the tumor, we like to isolate antigens. In other words, either proteins or genetic material that might elicit an immune response. And then from the blood, we isolate a select set of immune cells and we grow them in the culture dish, or we grow them ex vivo, I should say, in a way that allows for these unique specialized antigen processing cells or immune cells that process typically things like bacteria and virus and foreign material, but in this case, they would be processing cancer cells in order to mount an immune response. And so we mix the tumor pieces with these specialized immune cells that we've grown in the laboratory, and we activate those immune cells in a way that would initiate an anti-cancer, anti-GBM, or anti-glioblastoma immune response. And another way to look at that is that we've effectively, by mixing the tumor cells with these specialized immune cells, those tumor cells are giving a zip code, if you will, to the specialized immune cells. So that when we take those specialized immune cells, give them back to the clinicians, they give them back to the patient, then presumably they migrate to where they need to go, activate the other immune cells, and mount an immune response against the brain tumor. And this has actually been demonstrated and shown to be effective in previous generations of this dendritic cell-based immunotherapy, as I've mentioned. And in our third generation here, we've tweaked what's already been shown to be somewhat good and improved some survival by adding in immune boosters. And so that's where our IP, our intellectual property, sits. It's dendritic cell-based immunotherapy, along with these toll-like receptor adjuvants in a cocktail, if you will, or immune boosters for the purpose of the audience, to enhance the already efficacious activity that we see from the earlier drugs. We tested this hypothesis, if you will, immunotherapy plus immune boosters. We asked the question, does this outperform the first generation of dendritic cell-based immunotherapy alone, minus immune boosters, in animal models, rodent models for brain tumors, and be able to demonstrate significant improvement in survival in these animal models of brain tumors when comparing the third generation immunotherapy against the first generation. So based on this animal data and others, we feel we're now ready for human clinical trials. But that's effectively the technology, how it works, and how we identify it as a third generation based technology. Because of the success that we've seen from those first two generations and what we've learned from those clinical trials, we'd like to think that we'll see continued success with this third generation.
Once again, NovAccess Global Incorporated, XSNX, the stock symbol. Fascinating interview, Dr. Irwin. I'll let you get back to the conference. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thanks again for your time, Don. Always appreciated. And like I said, we're here at the LD Micro to let everyone know who we are, to introduce the technology and the company to everyone here, investors and other companies here in the Southern California area. And we look forward to doing more interviews with your TV show. Thanks a lot again, Don.